And to stop the WHOW stream, just say, Alexa, stop.
WHOW, now on the Amazon Alexa app.
AgriTalk is the radio talk show for American agriculture. Hi, everybody. I'm Lori, your host. We join you weekday mornings from 10 until 11 on WHOW, on AM and FM, and on the WHOW streams. We provide farmers and ranchers with timely insights and information aimed at improving their operations. Join me, Chip Flory, weekdays at 10:06 on Central Illinois Ag Station, WHOW.
News time is 9 minutes after 7 o'clock on this Monday. Top of the morning from the newsroom of Regional Radio and DeWittDailyNews.com. I'm Seth Lawrence with this expanded 7 o'clock newscast brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters, and by Connexus, providing fiber internet to Clinton. Learn more at DeWittDailyNews.com. A University of Illinois small farms educator is researching the recent resurgence of dust storms in central Illinois and the role agriculture can play in mitigating the frequency. Reagan Tibbs is a small farms educator at the University of Illinois Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties, and indicates the dust storm in the spring of 2023 that occurred south of Springfield, which claimed the lives of multiple motorists on Interstate 55, was first brought the issue up front and center.
That we remember a couple years ago, we had that tragic accident there on Interstate 55, which, unfortunately people lost their lives in that. And I think that raised the public awareness when it comes to dust storms and erosion and more broadly. And so, one of the things that starting last year, there was another dust storm that impacted right near my home in Logan County. So I started working on trying to understand what topics and what practices can farmers adopt to help prevent soil erosion and the loss of that soil, right? Because agriculture is all about soil. If we don't have healthy soils, we don't have soil at all, then we won't have the proper nutrients and a good crop every year. So if we can protect our soils and also in turn protect our land, that'll be a benefit for the long term. And so, I wrote a blog about it last year, and out of that has come some pretty important discussions on soil erosion and dust storms.
Tibbs' initial publication on the topic drew the interest of the National Weather Service in Lincoln. One point of emphasis for him is that the issue will not be resolved with just one solution.
Last year, after I wrote that blog, the National Weather Service office over in Lincoln reached out to me, and they wanted to get an understanding more broadly of how how soil erosion and agriculture, kind of what's that interaction look like? What type of practices can farmers adopt to reduce soil erosion? And one of the things that I mentioned to them, and I've said repeatedly, is that, one practice is not, the fix-all solution, right? It's a combination of practices together that can help reduce that. Obviously one of the big ones that people talk about is cover crops. And we've heard a lot about cover crops over the last few years, and those certainly help, but you have to pick the right species of cover crop, the right type of cover crop, which can really ensure the protection of the soil as much as possible. Also things like considering minimal tillage or no tillage at all. Those all come with their own side effects, but just considering those as a way to try and keep the soil where it is and protect it against soil erosion.
A piece of legislation from the 60s allowing for the removal of tree lines on agricultural land removed a lot of windbreaks, and Tibbs speculates that over time, the removal of those tree lines to maximize production has made an impact.
Back in the 60s, there was a thought by the federal government that, we need to farm fence row to fence row, right? Try to maximize our production to produce as much as possible. And that meant that a lot of the times, a lot of these fence rows and hedgerows and tree lines were taken out to ensure that we can farm fence row to fence row and farm as much land as possible. Now that in theory might sound good. We obviously want to produce as much as possible so that we have enough to consume domestically and internationally. But the downside to that has been, well, now there's nothing to block any wind. Right. So we can go miles and miles and miles with nothing in the way to stop the wind from picking up soil, or even if soil particles do get picked up, there's nothing there to stop them from going and carrying on any farther. So that's been one of the things that obviously it's a tough conversation to have. And, when these places haven't had wind blocks for decades now, at some point, getting those started, it's a bit complicated.
In partnering with the National Weather Service, Tibbs explains they are putting an emphasis on the lingo of the ag community. So when the Weather Service issues a notice or advisory, they can effectively direct producers on how to use caution.
Again, one thing, like I said, they've really wanted to learn kind of how agricultural practices can impact soil erosion. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is that, they've been very open and honest and asked some really good questions. And they've kind of changed their language about how they describe that to the public when they put out their dust storm advisories or their blowing dust advisories, ensuring that they're using the proper language so that people will understand what they're talking about. And they can also kind of better predict when these are going to happen, starting basically in March all the way through till even now. I've been reaching out to them pretty frequently about, hey, here's the conditions we're looking at. You might want to consider, if winds are going to be high, putting something out there just so people are aware of it.
Tibbs' findings haven't led him to the conclusion that ag practices are creating the conditions to deteriorate soil conditions to create these dust storms. However, he believes there are things producers can do to help make things better.
The Weather Service asked me one time, are the conditions getting worse? Are we seeing more erosion now than ever? And I'm not a soil scientist. I'm not a, geologist or whatever. So I can't speak to that. But I will say is that, we aren't seeing things slowing down. We haven't seen a lot of changes to our practices that could impact that. And I think, we need to have those conversations. They're not easy conversations to have, right? Sometimes producers, say, well, cover crops may not work on this field, and that might be true. But at least having those conversations and considering what practices we need to offer, that's been, at least starting those conversations, that's been the biggest thing for me. Obviously, like I said, cover crops is a big thing that people consider. But again, with cover crops, you have to consider has to be the right variety and the right species of cover crops, right? We can't just say, oh, I'm going to go out there and sow winter wheat and call it good. There has to be some sort of consideration as to maybe do I want more of a, winter wheat's a grassy type of cover crop? Do I want that has more broad leaves, that has better ground coverage? And then with cover crops, you have to consider the nutrient availability and so as well. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. So yeah, it's just such a field by field situation. You can't just make a broad assumption that, yep, put a cover crop in there and that'll work.
While the producers are not intentionally out trying to stir up dust, in fact, oftentimes field work is not going on when these dust storms pop up. But Tibbs believes there are things producers can do that can help keep those things from happening. You can find Tibbs' blog at extension.illinois.edu/LMS. News time, 7:15 on this Monday. June is Dairy Month, and a dairy nonprofit has established the theme, Pour on the Perfect. Monica Nyman with the St. Louis District Dairy Council is highlighting all the varieties of dairy in the dairy case at your local grocery store. It starts with knowing the difference between all the traditional gallons of milk at the grocery store.
First two that I want to talk about are conventional and ultra pasteurized. Okay, so the word conventional, that's kind of that traditional gallon of milk. When you head into the grocery store, it's always in the back of the store. And it's put there intentionally because you have to walk past everything else to get to it. And it's usually people identify this milk with like the color of the cap. So, growing up, I would say my family probably used the blue cap, right? I give my kids the red cap, the whole milk. Yeah, because it has a little bit more calories in them for those boys that they eat a lot of calories. So, but conventional milk, basically it's pasteurized at a lower temperature than some of the other milks I'm going to talk about today. And as a reminder, that pasteurization process is really just heating milk up so that it can kill any potential bacteria that could possibly be in it. So really, it's just kind of a safety measure for consumers. So again, that first type of milk is called conventional. Again, it's kind of in the back of the grocery store in the dairy case. It has all the colored caps. It's sold in gallons and half gallons and pints. And in the gas stations, you can grab those chugs, kind of the on-the-go type of option.
Ultra pasteurized milk is heated to a higher temperature for a shorter time, allowing the milk to have a longer shelf life. According to Nyman, ultra pasteurized milk can have a shelf life of up to 2 months.
All right, the second type that I'm going to talk about is called ultra pasteurized. And so this kind of milk, the pasteurization process, they actually heat it at a higher temperature for a shorter amount of time. And that gives it a longer shelf life. Okay, so your conventional milk is going to be about a week to 2 weeks. Ultra pasteurized is going to give you about 2 months of an expiration date. Okay, so that is really helpful for people that maybe don't go to the grocery store very often. My mom only shops about once a month. She lives by herself.
Mm-hmm.
She loads up on groceries. She actually freezes her milk, her ultra pasteurized milk, and then she brings it out and defrosts, and then she enjoys it, and it's still perfectly fine. So we kind of laugh because every once in a while when we visit, it has a few ice crystals in it because it's not fully defrosted. So my kids used to tease her about that. But so that's a good option for people that don't go grocery shopping very often, or they're not using milk that often, is the ultra pasteurized milk.
Shelf stable milk is an option for those who may not have the refrigerator space, and it comes in a lot of various sizes.
The other option that I wanted to talk about is called shelf stable milk. Have you heard of shelf stable milk before?
Maybe. Tell me about shelf stable milk.
So like the name implies, it actually can sit on the shelf without being refrigerated.
See, that just scares me.
So it's really interesting. It's all in the pasteurization process and the packaging. So it's in a really special package. I actually brought one for you today.
Okay.
And on the back side of it here, it kind of talks about how it's a ultra high temperature milk, and it gives you instructions on how this package it actually can go in and out of the grocery store in and out of the refrigerator as long as it's not opened. And then once you open it, you need to drink it within about 7 days, just like your regular. Let me give you some suggestions for this kind of milk, because I have found that it works really well for my lifestyle. They sell it. I just have found these in my local grocery store, but they sell smaller ones that are in just the single serve. And so I like to put milk in my coffee. I can't really drink black coffee. So milk has to be in my coffee to kind of make it creamy and kind of dilute it a little bit. So I travel, I go to St. Louis at least once a month and have an overnight. I bring those with me to my hotel. And then I have the K-cups that I can just make my coffee, put the milk in it. I recently took a vacation to a resort where it was not all inclusive. So everything was super duper expensive. I actually packed these UHT milks in my check-on bag. And I put them in a Ziploc bag, and just in case, in the middle of the air, it broke or whatever, they flew perfectly all the way. And I had milk to put in my coffee every single morning in my room without having to walk anywhere to buy expensive coffee, drinks and things like that. You can use these for backpacks, lunch boxes, traveling, vacations, because it doesn't have to be refrigerated until you want to enjoy it. So there's a lot of really great benefits to shelf stable milk. This is a product that I'm seeing a little bit more in the grocery store. It has been around for a long time, but now more companies are providing it with their label. Just like fresh, it is fresh milk. It's just, again, in the pasteurization and the packaging process. But just like regular milk, once you open it, it does have a shorter refrigeration life. So I purchased these this week, and it expires in September. September 17th of 2025 is Best Buy.
Nyman notes milk sales have also increased in recent years. We'll have more on that for June Dairy Month on regional radio. Last month, Social Security released the national and state-specific baby name data for 2024. Jack Myers with Social Security indicates they get asked often why they keep track of this data, and the answer is quite simple. It's because they have the information.
You might wonder, well, why does Social Security have a list of popular baby names? And, the reality of it is it's just kind of easy for us to compile, because through the process of issuing Social Security numbers, we have sort of become America's source for the most popular baby names, because, we already have the data. So we began compiling this list back in 1997, but the data goes all the way back to 1880. So it's a pretty robust list. You can get a lot of good information, and we just enjoy sharing it. It's something that people like to see. And we also kind of hope that while you're there at our website, socialsecurity.gov, checking this kind of stuff out, you'll take a few minutes to poke around and, maybe find some information about our programs, and hopefully create a My Social Security account for yourself so you can be better positioned to understand your Social Security and and take a look at what your future benefits will be.
You can see the top 10 boys and girls names of 2024 for the U.S. Myers. Myers indicates you can also see state-specific lists to see how Illinois or other states differ from the national naming trends. Additionally, if you want to check the historically popular specific names, you can do that too.
Usually they come out right around Mother's Day. So by the time, we talked early in the month, so we miss it in May, but have a chance to touch on it in June. And if you're interested in the most popular national and state-specific baby names for 2024, you can get the list at our website. So go to socialsecurity.gov. If you want to navigate straight to it, you can go to socialsecurity.gov/baby names. We've got a variety of different types of data there. You can see the top 10 boys and girls names of 2024 for the U.S. And then, as I alluded to, you can also see state-specific lists. So if you're interested in seeing how Illinois or any of the other states differ from national naming trends, you can find that. You can also look for things like the historical popularity of a specific name. So that's kind of interesting. It's really kind of fun to see the trends. The names are very trendy. You can look at one particular name and see that it kind of ebbs and flows in terms of the popularity. And so that's kind of interesting to look at. And
Liam and Olivia remain the top baby names from 2024, with a similar variety of the same name for the girls, rounding out the top 10 baby names.
Yeah, so for 2024, the national list will go by. The top 10 for males, number 1 through 10. Number 1 was Liam. Number 2, Noah. Number 3, Oliver. 4, Theodore. 5, James. And then Henry, Mateo, Elijah, Lucas, and William. And then for the female names, number 1 was Olivia. Number 2, Emma. Number 3, Amelia. Number 4, Charlotte. Number 5, Mia. And then Sophia, Isabella, Evelyn, Ava, and then Sophia with an F. So Sophia with a PH was number 6. Sophia with an F was number 10. So there are a lot of little Sophias running around that were born in, or I guess they're not running around yet, but a lot of little Sophias that were born in 2024.
Check out the full list at socialsecurity.gov/baby names. News time is 26 minutes after the hour on this Monday. We'll wrap things up coming up on the morning show.
Baum Chevrolet Buick offers full transportation options while giving you peace of mind. This is Scott Baum from Baum Chevrolet Buick here in Clinton. This is what we do every day. We listen to you, give you options for routine maintenance, major mechanical problems, or collision repairs with a staff that's knowledgeable to find the best option for you. Baum Chevrolet Buick, your full-service dealer. See us at BaumChevyBuick.com right from the start.
Experience the power of better connection with Connexus Fiber Internet. Connexus delivers ultra-fast, reliable speeds to keep you connected at the speed of life. Whether you're working from home, streaming your favorite shows, or gaming with your friends, Connexus has you covered. Say goodbye to buffering and dropped calls and say hello to fiber fast internet. Ready to upgrade your connection? Sign up today by clicking the Connexus icon at DeWittDailyNews.com. Nothing connects us like Connexus.
News time, 27 minutes after 7 o'clock on this Monday. Again, I'm Seth Lawrence with you folks today for this expanded local newscast. Legislation impacting pesticide applicators is winning approval during the spring legislative session in Springfield. The measure was a priority for the Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association, says the IFCA's KJ Johnson.
SB 783 that was held by Senator Kaler and then Larry Walsh, the representative, passed both the Senate and the House on pretty much unanimous votes. And this affects farmers and applicators in this way, is that this is going to give them an option to take continuous education credits going into the future to keep up their pesticide license. Right now, you must pass a core competency test to the Illinois Department of Ag but you must do that every 3 years to keep up your pesticide license. What this would do is that you still must pass the test the first time to show core competency. If you want to keep taking the test every 3 years, you can. That's an option. But this will give applicators in the state, after they pass that test the first time, to take continuous education credits to keep up their license. And then they wouldn't have to do the test every 3 years. This is a great option. A lot of states around us in Illinois already do this, but we're finally bringing it to Illinois where we can show that we can use this test to keep up everything on pesticide issues.
The legislation now awaits the governor's signature. News time, 28 minutes after 7 o'clock. Time now for a look at this morning's obituaries. 78-year-old Gerald Komnick of Clinton passed away June 1st at his family home in Clinton. Services for 78-year-old Jerry E. Komnick will be this morning at 11 a.m. at Clinton United Methodist Church with Pastor Daryl Howard officiating. Burial will follow at Camp Butler National Cemetery in Springfield. With military honors, memorials can be directed to the Clinton United Methodist Church or OSF Foundation. 77-year-old Jimmy Allen Harpster of Lake Charles, Louisiana, formerly of Bloomington, passed away December 4th at his family home. Graveside services with military honors for 77-year-old Jimmy Allen Harpster Sr. will be Tuesday at 10 a.m. at Weldon Cemetery with Ernie Harvey Jr. officiating. Calvert Funeral Home of Clinton is in charge of arrangements. Memorials can be directed to the disabled American veterans. News brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton and Connexus, providing fiber internet in Clinton. Learn more at DeWittDailyNews.com. Get news anytime at DeWittDailyNews.com. News is next.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. As National Guard troops stand watch protecting federal